For our Herald TV viewers, a warm welcome. This is your special program on health and happiness. This will be our third episode as far as nutrition and diet is concerned. We launched this with the problem of diabetes, and when we talked of diabetes with Dr. Celso, the crux was physical exercise and good diet and food, diet and nutrition. And then we have concentrated on the nutritional aspect, not only food, because not all food gives you nutrients. And we have had the expert with us, and she is none other than Sheryl Afonso DSouza. She is the assistant professor in Goa College of Home Science. Assistant Professor Sheryl, welcome. Once again,
Thank you once again, Ms. Lopez.
Yeah, we talked extensively on carbohydrates, on simple, complex sugars. Then we went on fats and oils. I think we did extensively on that.
A lot of discussion.
Yes. And now the third macronutrient that is needed, that's your protein, basically body build-up of your muscles and so on and so forth. And what we know is that we have a veg and non-veg and full and a little bit of not that. So to share with us first, what are proteins, what is the need, and from where are the various sources that we get from?
So proteins are a macronutrient, like you said, and they are often called the building blocks of the human body. Because every cell within the human body is made up of organs. These organs are made up of cells. So for the formation of these cells, we require proteins. Even if you look at our immune system, we have the WBCs, the antibodies that are formed in response to illness and disease. These have a protein base. So proteins are nutrients, they are constituents of our body which have diverse roles to play. Proteins are also required for maintaining something like your fluid balance, for maintaining your blood pressure, for maintaining your oncotic pressure. So a lot of roles that protein plays. For wound healing also, many people don't realize that, but proteins are required for all these functions within the human body.
Yeah, basically I think you have a veg source and non-veg.
Yeah, so dietary, when we talk about dietary sources of nutrients, then you have the vegetarian and the non-vegetarian protein. In the vegetarian protein, your pulses, the group of pulses, and the nuts and oil seeds, they are very good sources of proteins. And non-vegetarian sources would be your flesh foods, that's your meat, fish and poultry, and your dairy products.
Yeah, the new thinking, I wouldn't say very new, is an old thinking. People are going back and to say that veg proteins are much better than non-veg, especially when we talk of the meat.
Yes, so we have to look at and understand the qualitative value of a protein. Initially, and especially with sports people, the belief is still that non-vegetarian protein is very essential. Now, when you look at the structure of a protein, there's something called, they're made up of amino acids. And we have essential amino acids and non-essential amino acids. So basically, the essential amino acids are the ones that the human body cannot provide, and we need that through the diet. Unfortunately, the vegetarian proteins, they lack in a few of these essential amino acids, and that's why over a period of time and for long years now, we've considered them as poor quality protein, whereas the animal protein or the non-vegetarian protein, they have all of our essential amino acids.
So would you say that they are superior?
The non-vegetarian protein would be a superior quality, but that does not detract from the vegetarian protein value, because we have something called mutual supplementation of amino acids where vegetarian protein is concerned. So an amino acid that is not there, for example, in a cereal is there in a pulse. So if you look at the traditional Indian diet, we don't just eat only cereals. Yeah, we eat a combination of cereal and pulse. That's why we have our rice and dal. We have our khichdi. We have chapati with dal. So this is what we refer to as mutual supplementation, where the amino acid lacking in the cereal is there in the pulse. What's lacking in the pulse is there in the cereal, and that gives you a complete protein. Yeah. Good in quality as equivalent to your animal.
Especially totally veg.
Yes.
They talk about the lack of vitamin B12.
Yes, that would be one nutrient that is lacking, especially when you're a vegan, because vitamin B12 is very naturally formed in our gut because of the microbiome there. dairy products are known to produce or to promote vitamin B12 production. So if I am a vegan and I don't eat dairy also, the possibility of being deficient in B12 is there.
Yeah. Now, when we talk of protein, dals.
Yes.
Now, is it necessary to have the different varieties of dal, because dal is not just one type?
Yeah. So just to add spice and flavor and variety to your diet, yes. Otherwise, amino acid profile, the protein quality, the protein quantity is similar across the dals. One way by which we can enhance the quality of the protein as well as all the other nutrients that are there in pulses is by this concept of sprouting. So sprouting is similar to germination. When we do it in cereals, we call it germination. When we do it for pulses, we call it sprouting. So you would take the pulse, the raw pulse, you would soak it in water for a couple of hours and then allow the small shoots to come up over a couple of days. That enhances the protein quality and other nutrient value also.
Yeah. Now, when you talk of different types of dals,
Yes.
which is of your best choice?
Everything really good. Moong, of course, scores because of its multi-nutrient content. Then you have the traditional, the tur dal that we eat a lot of, the masoor dal. That's also good. Kabuli chana and rajma because of the fact that they have higher calcium content in them. So that's a group of pulses which I would recommend. In addition to the protein value, there's the calcium value, there is the iron value. So rajma, kabuli chana, then horse gram. These are the ones that have more of minerals and vitamins.
Sometimes when you go for these religious festivals, they give you that chickpeas or...
Yes, so that's kabuli chana.
That's kabuli
Yes,
chana.
that's kabuli chana.
So you think it's...
More nutritious, definitely more nutritious.
Good,
yes,
good
yes,
nutritious.
yes. Calcium and iron present in them.
Yeah. And you talk about, for example, of this vegetable called a drumstick.
Yes.
They say that it has got most of the amino acids.
It does, it does. So in within the purview of your pulses also, soya bean.
Yes.
That's one pulse which has an amino acid profile which is excellent and equivalent to an animal protein. So soybean today is also holding center stage.
The only problem sometimes when we talk of soybean, they talk about genetically modified and they say it's not good and things like that.
Sadly, I think we have to be aware of that anything in this world can be genetically modified.
Yes.
So if you have that basic understanding that there is the possibility of genetically modified pulses, we have to read the food label and make sure that we don't buy those. Another thing that people are generally worried about is that soybean also has something called the phytoestrogens, which are chemical compounds similar to estrogen, and males especially fear that if they eat too much of soybean, it can decrease the testosterone levels in the body. But one has to understand that we can never overdo the consumption of a pulse, so that fear should not be there in the minds of people.
Yeah, and sometimes they talk about paneer. The cottage cheese.
Cottage cheese, yes.
So what do you think about
Yes,
it?
that's again healthy. That's from a dairy product. It has easily digestible protein, concentrated source of protein. But one negative possibly with paneer is the fact that it may have a slightly higher fat content.
Yes, yes.
So that's what people have to be aware of.
And when you talk of non-veg, they say that egg is a complete biological food.
Yes. Egg and milk, two protein foods which are complete in their amino acid profile, easily digestible also. Eggs also do contain, in addition to protein, the yolk of the egg, which so many people discard, contains your B vitamins, it contains D vitamin, so it contains essential fatty acids. So it would be advisable to consume the egg in totality.
Very often they talk about cholesterol.
Yeah.
And they don't understand that our own body, the liver,
Does produce cholesterol.
produces
by itself.
cholesterol.
Yes.
Now, anything in excess
Is
is
always
always, not only in the case of egg, but
any food in excess is bad.
yes.
What also, and I think we did touch upon this in our last episode, is the manner in which you cook your foods, right? So the same thing with our pulses. They're so full of life, they're so full of nutrients, but if you're going to use too much of oil in cooking them, we're going to detract from the nutritional value of them
Yes.
or make them bad. So we often look at vegetarians as supposedly being healthy, but to add taste to their foods, many vegetarians would add ghee and oil in excess amounts.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's where the
I
pulse then
believe that
becomes-
the government of India says that we have been producing lot of milk, and therefore now they want to promote ghee. This
Yes,
is
we
something latest that I heard.
Yes, we had this white revolution come into India many years back with Amul setting base out here, and that's how we have organized sector as far as dairy farming is concerned. And the production of milk is really quite high. And if the government is able to promote ghee made from milk and not from any other source, then it's good.
But sometimes people have a doubt about the quality of milk, especially if the farmers now are using artificial oxytocin.
Yes, that's something that we have to be careful with, because especially since milk is a fat-based food, and these hormones or the external chemicals are easily soluble in this lipid base, and we have to be a little careful with that. But that's where again education of the farmers is concerned, comes in handy, where we can advise them how they can produce the same yield of milk without artificially putting in hormones.
And also, I don't know how far this is true, that to keep the buffaloes and the cows healthy, they indulge in giving lot of very powerful antibiotics.
This is to prevent infections in them.
Yes.
Very true. That is something that is passed on into the flesh of the animal, into the milk of the animal, and can affect consumers. That's why again the advice for very young children not to start off on cow's milk or buffalo milk too early on in life.
But the goat's milk would be better?
Preferable. Up to now, we've the percentage of people drinking goat's milk is low, so the necessity to inject them with hormones and antibiotics may not be felt. So that's something that could help us in
And
promoting
now
goat's
also they talk about veg milk, almond milk, soya milk and all
soya
that.
milk. Interestingly, all this can be made at home. So
Is
when
it?
we buy it in the market, it's quite expensive, of course. But the same technique can be followed at home. All you need to do is either soak the almonds or the soy in water, the soybean in water, boil it if you would like, and then the same way how we would extract coconut milk
Okay.
is how you would extract almond milk.
I don't think so many people know about it.
No. So it's a trend that is catching up. Everything is easy, but that's why you go to the supermarket and pick it off the shelves.
Yeah, but then if you pick up one of these ready-made products,
Yes.
there are a lot of preservatives which are added.
Totally.
So
the home option is really good.
It's much better.
Yes,
much
and
better.
especially with soy milk, it's so easily done at home because the quantity that you get is also much higher.
Yes.
And you're assured of quality because you're making the milk, under supervision at home. So all you need to do, like I said, is either soak the beans in water for a couple of hours. You can boil it a little bit to remove the anti-nutritional factors that may be present in soybean. It has a slight different taste when you boil it, and then put it into your mixie. Little bit of water can be added to it to start off the churning process.
So I think
and you get the milk.
the housewives, if they are conversant with all this,
They can do it. No reason they should not be doing it at home.
Yes.
If they're concerned about dairy.
So milk. What is your take on the whole on milk?
Milk is healthy, but I have always believed that it is a product that is given too much of importance, especially during childhood. Milk is known for its protein value, milk is known for its calcium value, but there are so many other foods. Like we started this entire discussion with pulses. If you look at the nutritional profile of pulses, I do get my calcium, I do get my protein even from pulses. So why overemphasize the consumption of milk in the diet of anybody?
And one school of thought which says that milk of cows and buffaloes are for the children of cows and buffaloes.
Of the young ones, and not
of their own,
adult
not for adults.
Human consumption. Yes, that's a very strong line of thought. If you look at the human digestive system also, we need the enzyme renin for digesting milk. Whereas in fermented dairy products like curds or cheese or paneer, the protein is already pre-digested. Yeah. And studies have shown that this renin enzyme very naturally after the age of around 1 or 2 years slowly decreases, which is another line of thought which tells us that we don't really need to be drinking milk after toddlerhood or
Yeah.
infancy.
So therefore you depend on mother's milk.
Yes, that's why
Yeah.
it's just on breast milk for the first 2 years.
Yeah.
You require an alternate source of milk, which is calcium and protein. You have so many other foods to choose from.
Yeah. And when you talk of vitamin D,
Yes.
Sunlight is there.
Absolutely essential.
Yeah.
Sadly, today, so many of us, and especially our youngsters, more concerned about color of skin than their nutritional well-being. But vitamin D is one of the nutrients that you don't need to pay for. But if you look at the number of osteoporosis cases, the number of ladies requiring to take calcium and vitamin D supplements after the age of 30, 35, 40 is sad. When we are getting this vitamin for free, all you need to do is just stand in the sunlight for about 15 minutes a day and you've got your
And
daily
which is the
dose.
best time to get the sunlight? Early
Anytime.
morning or
Early morning, because the rays of the sun are not very harsh at that time. Otherwise, right from sunrise to sunset, your body is able to convert inactive vitamin D to active vitamin D just by mere 15 to 20 minutes exposure.
And they say that vitamin D3 now is a hormone.
Yeah. Vitamin D is always known to be a hormone. In addition to being a vitamin, it's also a hormone because it has a whole cycle related to how your hormones function within the human body, including the kidney.
And of late, the one school of thought, this is an American principle always, they are more commercial. They say that you never know how many minutes you have had exposure on the sun. Maybe they say that the only tablet that you could take could be vitamin D3, whereas all the other vitamins, they say that you can get from your food.
So the whole reasoning being because we are not exposing our bodies to sunlight. Of course, I do understand that you may have a compromised ability to absorb the vitamin because of certain genetic deficiencies in our population, but doesn't mean that we directly go on to supplements. The Americans,
They're all commercial.
They want it easy.
Yes.
They want it easy. But in my opinion, we need to be promoting our children right from childhood. Even when a baby is born, it was traditional culture. If you remember that the child would be taken out in the
Yes,
sunlight and given a
yes,
few sun rays.
yes.
It was again because of the vitamin D.
Vitamin D,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
It's one of the most important vitamins.
It is one of the most important vitamins.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then we go to fish. Now, all Goans basically are fish
They love
eaters.
fish, yes.
So, what is your take?
A very healthy food, omega-3 fatty acids present in fish, and omega-3 fatty acids are required for brain development. It's required for keeping your heart healthy. It's required for your skin health also. So omega-3 fatty acid in fish, excellent, and of course the protein value of the fish also.
Now, there's one school of thought which says this, go for small fish. Don't
Yes.
go for big,
big
because
fish.
now the new trend now in most of the hotels, they come and they show you the big
big fish.
big slices and all
Yes,
that.
yes.
And they say mercury
Yes.
is found especially in some sorts of fishes.
Yeah, again, salmon, sardines, mackerels, anchovies, which we don't get in our waters, but foreign waters, salmon, again in foreign waters. These are fish which have a relatively higher fat content. Mercury is a heavy metal which unfortunately is present in our oceans and our seas and our rivers because of effluents from industries. And fish with a high fat content are able to hold on to the mercury. That's why the line of thought that these smaller fish which have lesser fat content could be healthier because they don't have the possibility of mercury in them.
Most of our women who don't know about this big fish and
Yes.
small fish, they are educated during their pregnancy.
Yes,
Whenever they
yes.
go to the doctor,
Yes, that's where the doctor tells us.
Yes.
Even shellfish,
Yes.
because shellfish fat content is high, so the possibility of again that having small amounts of mercury would be there.
Yeah.
That's why during pregnancy you're advised again not to eat shellfish.
and what about prawns? And,
Similar.
uh,
Crabs, prawns, so any of these have a higher fat content, a higher cholesterol content. So again, the possibility of contamination is higher in these.
yeah, and smaller fish, you would say, is much better.
Safer
Safer.
to
It
eat.
is
Safer
safer
to
to
eat.
eat.
Although I'm not very sure, but I think there have been studies carried out on Goan waters where we find that the mercury levels are not really high. So we
Okay.
can be safe about consumption of any type of fish in Goan
Yeah.
waters.
So fish is essential.
Yes,
Yeah.
essential.
Then we come to the meat. Now we have chicken and we have got the other big animals which
Yes.
are there.
Yes.
And yesterday itself I read some American magazine which says that we should avoid all meat.
It would be nice, right, if we were able to. Meat is tasty. I guess that's why
Very
we get
tasty, very
that's why we
tasty.
get hooked onto it. But poultry is healthier compared to maybe beef or mutton or pork because of the fact that once I remove the skin of poultry, I have rid myself of saturated fat consumption. The flesh of chicken has barely very little amounts of fat in it. But the amino acid profile is good of flesh foods. The protein quality is good. We have to try and choose lean products as compared to the tastier fat products. Even with pork, if you see, many of us like the fatty portion of it
Yes,
because that's what adds
yes.
taste. But if you're able to eat the lean portion, then there is no harm done. And again, the quantities. Unfortunately, in the Goan diet, many of us cannot do without non-vegetarian in terms of beef and chicken every day. Again, that's the mistake. Fish is a healthier
Option.
protein, is a healthier option. And if we can change our eating habits to being more predominantly fish as compared to meats, it would be good.
But fish has become very expensive now.
That's the downside, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, earlier it wasn't so.
Yes.
But now.
Maybe we
and-
should promote fishing in communities.
I know.
Go out
I
and
know. Yeah,
catch your own fish.
Yeah. So when we talk of chicken now, again, people say these broilers and locals, and even the eggs. They say these white eggs are not very healthy eggs compared to little brownish.
So I'm glad you raised this point actually. If you read, you will understand that the color of the shell is dependent upon the breed of the bird. So you can have a white egg, you can have, you even have pink eggs
Yes.
of hens. So it all depends upon the breed of the bird, and the color of the shell does not determine the nutritional value. Why do we say Gaunty eggs are healthier is because of the fact that in commercial poultry farms, the birds are, again, like meat, they possibly are injected with antibiotics and hormones, which will be transferred to the egg. So the fear that there will be some residue of this is there. Whereas in our Gaunty eggs, we are a little bit assured of the fact that we are not injecting stuff into that, and that's why it's healthier. But otherwise, nutritionally, in terms of protein, fats, and other nutrients in it, it's the same.
Yeah, but then when you go to buy them, the locals one are pretty expensive.
Because of
It may be
no, because in commercial it's mass produced.
Yes.
But where in our Gaunty eggs, you get from one hen fewer numbers, and I guess that's why. And plus, again, like you said, it's the thought processes that we've put into minds of people that it's healthier. Anything that is healthier is price raised.
So chicken is a good lean meat.
Lean meat is a good, yes, it's a good source of
So
protein.
it's a good source.
It is.
And now we come to the red meats.
Yes.
Yes. What is your take on?
Red meat, again, if we can choose the lean portions of red meat, we are safe. And if we can restrict our consumption to maybe not more than 3 times a week, then that would be something that would really help.
Yeah, now you talk about mutton, for example.
Yes.
Compared to beef, does mutton have more saturated type of fat or?
No, beef
what?
has more amount of saturated.
Beef has got more.
A little more amount
Little
of
more,
saturated.
okay.
Saturated fat in
Okay.
it, yeah. And saturated fat is the culprit generally because that's the one that predisposes one towards heart disease.
Yeah, and they talk about the feed that is being given to cows, and it should be grass-fed.
Yeah.
In the Western world, they say unless it is grass-fed, you should not consume the meat.
Yes, because that's always healthier. It affects the quality of the meat that you are getting. So that's what I said, right? Even with poultry, we are doing something called mass production. So all of these hens or even the cattle, they are all, put into enclosures, which prevents healthy breathing of them. And then the type of feed that they are given is also not healthy. They're not allowed open farm grazing. And that will affect the health of the animal as well as the quality of the meat that we're getting.
And when you talk of pork, because in
Yes,
Goa,
yes.
most Catholics,
Yes.
they cannot do, especially during the feast days,
festivals, yes.
and then the sausages.
Yes.
And sausages attract everybody, yeah?
Yes.
whatever
Yes,
whatever
irrespective of
we may
religion,
say
yes.
it. So what is your thought about?
Once again, the fat content is what we need to be careful with. Unfortunately, with sausages, the more fat, the tastier it is, because that's what we associate with taste. And it goes without saying that when you have a higher fat content in any meat, it's much tastier. So again, once again, if we are able to restrict our quantities and the frequency of consumption, then we're pretty okay with
But
that.
when you talk now pork is also red meat.
Pork is considered actually white meat.
White meat.
It is white meat.
Yes.
Yes.
So what it is now? White meat and red meat.
Yes. So the red meat is thought to have a higher saturated fat content as compared to the white meat, and the color, because of the blood vessels present in it, that's another classification for red versus white meat.
Yeah, I'm admiring your expertise that you have,
Thank you. Thank you,
have,
Mr.
and it's very interesting. It's very interesting. So when you talk of red meat, especially, do you think that there should be a limit on that?
There should be a limit to it, yes. Not more than possibly in a day 200 grams of the raw meat consumption for an adult, and like I said, every alternate day.
Yeah, and very often English breakfast, bacon is there.
Oh, yes, that's a tasty breakfast.
Yes.
That's something that I enjoy
Is
also,
it?
but I do it only on Christmas.
Okay,
That is my one indulgence,
Okay.
bacon for Christmas.
Yeah.
So if we are able to again restrict, because bacon is nothing else but fat.
Yes.
The taste of bacon
Yes.
is because of the fat.
Yes.
So if these are foods, even my processed meats like your sausages, your frankfurters, all of that, if we can restrict the consumption of that and prevent every breakfast from being a combination of processed meats and
Yeah, because they say
eggs.
processed meats and colorectal cancer sometimes.
Yes, it's very high. During processing and during even chorizo production and bacon production, when I'm cooking the meat or when I'm grilling the meat, there is the release of nitrites, nitrates, nitrosamines, and these are again linked to cancer.
So therefore, I think our local made sausages
Healthier.
would be much
healthier than what you buy from the supermarkets.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we come to cheese now.
Yes. Cheese, tasty. Everybody loves their cheese. Has a high protein content, and luckily for many of us now we have low-fat cheese available in the market, just like we have low-fat dairy. So if we are really concerned about the fat content of cheese and want to maintain our protein and calcium intake via cheese, then the low-fat cheese option variety is available.
Yeah. In Goa, in the old Portuguese days, you would get cheese which was not too fatty, and they would make it in small sort of things. Do you have any idea of that?
Not really very aware of it,
Yes.
but I'm guessing that the small quantities was again a lesson for all of us that we need to control the portion sizes.
Yeah, that's a
Yes,
good thought
yes.
process. So, anything else that you would like to add on proteins?
Proteins, very healthy, essential for all age groups. And my only advice as far as proteins is concerned is that we can overdo our consumption of protein, especially when we are in the when we are sports people or when we are young adults. You'll hear a lot of us emphasizing intake of protein. One thing you have to understand is that your body will absorb the amount of protein that it requires. Anything in excess will be thrown out, and there will be an extra strain on your kidneys.
Yeah.
And that's something that we have to learn early in life.
And they say that people who avoid carbohydrates, especially
Yes.
sugars, they resort to more proteins.
There are diets which emphasize protein consumption and zero carbohydrate or 5% carbohydrate consumption. Not good, not healthy at all, because inadvertently the more we raise our protein intake, especially with animal protein, we're also raising our fat intake, especially saturated fat intake, and that can have an internal effect on health which is not visible to us.
So I think we have talked extensively and exhaustively on the macronutrients, that's your carbohydrates, fats and proteins. And your expertise is something which,
Thank you.
which I admire, because you have the understanding, the knowledge and application,
Yes.
which is very, very important.
Nutrition is something I love, and I really am thankful to you for, recognizing it always in your life and inviting me on this show to really
No, you
educate
are
the
a
audience.
compliment and you are a supplement. If people had
Thank
just
you.
to listen to you and go by your advice,
Thank you.
I'm sure you would have been promoting much better health, especially in Goa and for the Goans. Thank you very much, Professor. I will call you more Professor than Assistant Professor. Sheryl, thank you very much for your knowledge, and the way that you share it and make it so simple is understandable for anybody and everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
We
Mr.
shall
Lopes.
continue. Our last could be maybe minerals and vitamins, that's vegetables and
Fruits.
before I conclude, in Goa, people would consume alsande.
Yes, yes. A very healthy protein. That's a very healthy pulse, locally grown.
Yeah, locally grown. Yeah,
Yes.
they would grow and they would consume.
Yes.
And even they would make some sweet.
We are in fact in the International Year of Millets.
Yes.
And pulses also come out. The importance of pulses have also been coming out along with the millets. So yes, this combination of pulses which are grown in Goa have to be emphasized.
Thank you very much. I mean, there's no end.
Yes,
We keep on,
discussion.
especially with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And bye bye till we
Thank-
meet again.
Thank you, Ms.